Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your guest co-host, Clint MacLean. Today, we're going to be talking about UFC Paris, Tai Tuivasa versus Ciryl Gane. And Clint, it's going down this Saturday night in Paris, France, Paris, live from the Accor Arena. You got the former interim heavyweight champion, Ciryl Gane, taking on the number 3 ranked heavyweight, Tai Tuivasa. It should be an action-packed main event for the UFC's debut in France.
Yeah, man, it's a good card. First off, thank you for having me. It's always fun to talk fights with you and break stuff down. This should be an entertaining card, man. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. You know, it's funny. I've had you on the show before, but I'm pretty sure that last time we were like recapping a card. So I think it's the first time we break down a card together on Half the Battle. So it's great to have you on. And I mean, it's cool to do it in a card like this where they're breaking ground. This is new territory, man. I mean, for the longest time, France MMA has been banned. Like, if you were caught like throwing some underdog shows in France, like they're taking away your promoter's license, they're sending you right to jail, they're throwing away the key, they're doing the whole bit. And not only are they bringing a UFC card to France, you got the first, I'd say, French champion, Ciryl Gane, interim champ. I mean, listen, he's got a UFC belt at home, Clint. So he's the first ever French champion. And I'm not talking about French Canadian, I'm talking about French. So it's pretty cool to see. And I mean, he's taking on a certified banger in Tai Tuivasa.
No, it's great matchmaking. They're definitely doing a good job taking the first show over to France. And can you believe in the year of our Lord 2022, man? It took them this long to legalize MMA in Paris, France. I mean, better late than never, but they're definitely doing them right, giving them a good hometown show. There's some good names, local names on the card that they're promoting. So, yeah, man, it should be good. Those people are in for a treat there. They get to go see this one live.
I mean, I say it often, man. We live in primitive times. I mean, you know, New York wasn't legalized till like what, 2016. Like, I mean, that it feels like it was just yesterday when UFC 205 happened, when McGregor fought Alvarez, and you know, it's crazy. And there's still tons of other places where the sport's not legal. So UFC keeps covering new ground, and it's going to be amazing to see how this all unfolds. But Clint, without further ado, let's get right down to business, because the main event of the evening, we got the former interim champion, Ciryl Gane. He's 10-1, representing France. He's taking on Tai Tuivasa, who's 15-3, representing West Sydney, Australia. And currently, they got it. Ciryl Gane minus 600, Clint. The comeback on Tai Tuivasa is plus 425. So, I mean, listen, we all agree that Ciryl Gane should be favored. It's just, do we agree that he should be favored to this extent? That's the big question here, right? Like, I'm not about to parlay no minus 600 on Ciryl, even if I think that he's, you know, the more athletic guy, even if I think he's got the better volume, even if I think he's got more paths to victory at heavyweight. You're playing with fire. You know, Tai Tuivasa, Mark Hunt 2.0. He's the 2022 version of Mark Hunt. You know that if he can't do anything else, he can knock somebody out, climb up on the cage, and do a shoey.
He's good, man. He's definitely good. The hometown crowd, they won't be silent for long if he wins. I know they'll be sad when Ciryl Gane goes down, but once that shoey kicks in, I think people will kind of come around a little bit. He's an entertainer, man. Tuivasa is the man. You know, kind of like we say with Paul Craig, for the culture. We all cheer for Tai Tuivasa to get the win, no matter who he's fighting, because it's just good for MMA. This is a fun fight, man. And honestly, you nailed it. I think Ciryl Gane should be favored. I think he should be the rightful favorite here in this spot. He's a lot bigger. He's crazy athletic and fast for a heavyweight. That size advantage, the potential grappling advantage that he has, that's all stuff that I think makes him a deserving favorite in this spot. But if you're ever going to give a guy a puncher's chance, you know, Tai Tuivasa is the kind of guy that plus money starts looking real nice on. You know, I did my podcast a couple of days ago on Monday, had my guy Dan Tom come on, and he broke this fight down so beautifully that I'm tempted to take a stab on the underdog here on Tai Tuivasa, Dan. I really am. You kind of take away a couple of those things, like the offensive wrestling. Ciryl Gane, he got slowed down by Francis Ngannou. I know that's a different stylistic matchup, so you can't, you know, compare apples to oranges there. Tai is not going to take Ciryl Gane down or anything like that, but Tai showed some decent get-up game, you know, in his fight against the Black Beast this last time out. So if Ciryl Gane takes him down, is it just a game over button right away? I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Tai Tuivasa seems like he's got underrated cardio for how big he is. He carries that power with him. He can match Ciryl Gane in the leg kicking game. Will that slow down Ciryl Gane because someone's finally chopping his legs out in a fight? I don't know. Like, this is a very, very interesting fight. I'm not going to be laying the price tag with Ciryl Gane. I'd be looking more at like Ciryl Gane by sub. I think that's got a decent shot to hit if he wants to expose that ground game weakness. I think Tai Tuivasa, I wouldn't play around with the props because, his money line is like plus 450 and the KO is like plus 500. So you're not really getting a whole lot of extra value there. But Tai by nuke would be kind of the way that I would look at it. I got a hard time seeing this fight going all 25 minutes, but I say that every time Ciryl Gane fights, and we find ourselves deep in the fourth round with him, picking and poking and running away. So, I wouldn't touch the total on this one personally, but I kind of feel like somebody is eventually going to get finished just because of the way Tai fights.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it's funny you brought that up about, us thinking it's not going to go 25 minutes and this and that, because it reminds me of Ciryl Gane's last fight. Everybody gave me so much shit for taking Francis Ngannou money line, which he was like, what, plus 125, plus 130. They're like, why don't you just play him by KO? Why don't you just play him inside the distance? I'm like, the guy I'm picking outright is already the underdog. Why am I about to get cute, on some shit? Like, I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, I think he's going to knock him out, but it's MMA. Anything can happen. And lo and behold, he goes out there and puts on a wrestling clinic for 3 of the 5 rounds. So I like that. Here with Ciryl Gane, what's interesting about him, I mean, we talk about the range striking. We talk about the fact that this guy's 6'5". We talk about how he's got the 81-inch reach. He's got a 6-inch reach advantage over Tai Tuivasa. But some of the more underrated elements in his game, just in terms of a heavyweight, is you don't often see heavyweights going for leg locks. And like for the little guys, that's actually like a big red flag. But for the big guys, since there's like not, I mean, who else can you think of that goes for leg locks as a big boy? Really not too many. I mean, when you think of submission artists in the heavyweight division, I mean, back in the day, you'd think of Frank Mir. I know you got a toe hold like once or twice, but this dude, Ciryl Gane, he's got like 2 wins by leg lock inside the UFC, even dropped for a leg lock against Francis Ngannou. Don't be surprised to see, if stuff might not be going his way on the feet, which it should go his way. But if it doesn't, I mean, this guy Tai Tuivasa can crack. Like we said, when all else fails, Tai Tuivasa can still knock anybody out. So here's the thing with that, though. Ciryl Gane ain't exactly Mr. Double Leg. Ciryl Gane ain't exactly Mr. D1 Wrestling. Like, Ciryl Gane ain't about to come out here. I don't think he's about to double leg anything. I think it'd be more from the clinch, maybe a trip takedown or something like that. But he's the kind of guy that'll pull guard and go for a leg lock. And while that might not work against, the heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou, I wouldn't be surprised if it worked here. So even though conventional wisdom says that these two are going to bang it out, don't be surprised to see, some of that unorthodox grappling. I say unorthodox grappling, at least like it's just rare grappling for heavyweight standards. You don't see heavyweights going for leg locks. This is the guy that does it. So, I mean, I'm not going to be surprised to see a Ciryl Gane leg lock, but ultimately, I mean, here's the thing, man. Tai Tuivasa closing that distance, I don't care how much better of a striker you are. I don't care how much more credentialed you are in your kickboxing career. This dude closing the distance on anybody is a scary thing. So you cannot count out his and it sucks to say that the number 3 guy on planet Earth only has a puncher's chance, because it seems kind of disrespectful. But at the same time, I don't see Tai Tuivasa coming out here getting takedowns. I don't see Tai Tuivasa coming out here, hugging Ciryl Gane, killing the clock. I see it closing the distance, landing big shots, that big left hook, maybe trying to slow down the movement with some leg kicks, and in the clinch trying to break away with that big elbow that he's got. So, yeah, I see it being a good fight, but ultimately, I think he's minus 600 for a reason, even if I'm not going to lay that price. It's just trying to figure out how it's going to go down, right? Like, that's the big question. It's easy to say that Ciryl Gane's going to win. Yeah, he's minus 600, but how's he going to win? Is it going to be a knockout? Is he going to, is it going to be a competitive fight? Is he going to point him up for 5 rounds? Is he going to drop back for a leg lock, And one thing I want to say about Tai Tuivasa is when he first came into the UFC, he'd always been talented. I mean, he's always kind of, like I said, been that Mark Hunt 2.0, that 2022 version of Mark Hunt. And when he came in, he was still that guy. But there were certain things that needed to be addressed. Like you mentioned, maybe the cardio, maybe the ground game, maybe this, maybe that. I feel like he's been patching some things up. I feel like this version of him, he went through that 3-fight skid. I feel like he's humbled himself. And as a result, now he's number 3 in the world. So I definitely have been liking what I've been seeing. I like the improvements. And if someone were to take a 1-unit shot at plus 450 odds, like, I'm not going to talk shit about it. This guy can knock anybody out. But ultimately, I do, side with the minus 600 favorite here.
Agreed. Definitely.
So co-main event of the evening. In the middleweight division, we got the former middleweight champion, Robert the Reaper Whittaker. He's 23-6, taking on Marvin, the Italian Dream Vettori, who's 18-4. And currently, they got it Robert Whittaker minus 210. The comeback on Marvin Vettori is plus 180. Interesting fight. You know, I mean, I think that Whittaker is better across the board, but it's also one of those things where I always, for some reason, have questions about guys that he's had his 2 title shots. Where's that motivation at, right? Like,
Yep.
you know, you're not going to beat this guy, Izzy, even if the last one was close. You know, and another thing about that fight, I thought that Izzy clearly won the fight, but because it was closer than people expected, because Izzy coasted a couple rounds, people try to act like Whittaker won that fight. Whittaker did not win that fight. Whittaker maybe won a round or 2, but Whittaker did not win that fight, period. You know, you have to win 3 rounds at least to win a 5-round fight. He did not win 3 rounds in that fight, 2 rounds at most, but it was a step in the right direction compared to the first fight. No questions asked. It's just after coming off that loss, you know, do you still have it in you to put your shoes back on and go through another camp and, you know, try to, you know, rack up 3 more wins in a row to make it to that title shot once again? I hear his interviews talking about how he wants to go to 205 and this and that. So I don't know.
Never a good sign.
Because the thing with Vettori, so he's not as talented as Whittaker. He's not as athletic as Whittaker, but he's got that delusion of a world champion. Let me explain what I mean. This dude lost to Izzy 5-0 the second time. The first time he lost 2-1, but the second time he lost what, 5-0 or 4-1 or something like that. So his corner, like, they all got their heads down. They're all like, yeah, we clearly lost the shit. Vettori's like, dude, I won that fight. You know what I mean? This guy's absolutely delusional. And you need that delusion to be a world champion, especially when you're not a 6'4", you know, freak athlete like Israel Adesanya. You don't have this kickboxing pedigree. You know, Israel, you remember those dances he used to do like on the walkouts and shit? That's like some real athleticism. That's some shit you'll never see Marvin Vettori doing, like 10 backflips and, you know, doing dance routines on the walkout. And it's not because it's not who he is. He can't do that. You know what I mean? So Marvin Vettori's got to make up for it in other ways. He's very mentally strong. He's one of those guys that doesn't take no for an answer. So I would actually argue that that Vettori is hungrier than Whittaker at this point. It's just, Clint, does it matter? Because Whittaker, I think, technically speaking, is the better fighter here.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, Dan. I talked about this one on my show that I'm a firm believer in Marvin Vettori. The man is psychotic, and I love that self-belief that he's got in himself, and that'll take him places. You know, he's been just handling everybody that the UFC has put in front of him. The Paulo Costa fight was close, but I think it was clear he impressively won that fight. You know, he's chomping at the bit to get another title shot. He wants to get back to Ciryl Adesanya. And let's not forget, he's what, 28 years old? Like, this kid has a long way that he can still go. The miles on Robert Whittaker have got to add up eventually. The problem for me is that there's no knockout threat coming from Marvin Vettori, right? He's a grinder. He's a grappler. He'll put pace on you. Robert Whittaker faces those guys, chews them up and spits them out like they're nothing, because he has no problem going 25 minutes and keeping a pace. He has no problem using the jab, sticking and moving. I think that this fight could play out extremely close. If Robert Whittaker has lost a step, if his motivation is down just a little bit, then this fight gets very interesting all of a sudden. But I almost feel like that's the kind of thing that has to happen here. I think Marvin Vettori is someone who I want to be invested in moving forward. I think there's a lot of matchups that he'll be able to beat people that, you know, you kind of don't see coming. But at the same time, this is a tough matchup for him. Again, I agree with the favorite being the favorite. It looks like a little bit of money has come in on Marvin Vettori. I talked about maybe taking a stab at him when he was at plus 195. He's plus 180 now. So apparently somebody out there also thinks that Marvin Vettori is live in this spot. I'd be looking at laying the chalk on this fight goes the distance, Dan. I think the one thing that you can really count on is the durability of Marvin Vettori and the fact that he can't finish anybody. So even if I question the durability and the willingness, and I don't want to say the heart, but like the desire for Robert Whittaker in this fight, he's not tapping. He's not going to get knocked out. So like, I think we're going to see a 15-minute fight. I think it could play out closely. I'll probably play the fight goes the distance. That's a parlay piece. You could do either guy, pick your poison by decision. The split decision prop, Dan, plus 400 on DraftKings. Have this fight be close and the judges not know which way to score it. That's maybe the way I'm looking here. But I will say Robert Whittaker probably gets his hand raised on Saturday by decision, but I would not be shocked at all if Marvin Vettori comes out and makes it interesting.
I mean, I think what you're saying is logical in terms of it going 15 minutes, but I also think MMA is not a logical sport.
That is so true.
I think that Marvin Vettori, you know, similar to Leon Edwards. Okay, maybe the finishes haven't been there, but there's been glimpses to where maybe a finish could materialize. Like, for example, in that Marvin Vettori versus Jack Hermanson fight, okay, it went all 5 rounds, but Marvin did land a knockdown in that fight. You go to Leon Edwards, like most of his wins were decisions, but he had knockdowns in those wins, right? Like the Gunnar Nelson fight, like he dropped Gunnar Nelson in that first round, I believe. He's had other fights where he's dropped, who just hasn't finished them. But the finish materialized later when he fought Usman. So I'm just saying. And then on the Whittaker side, a lot of these fights have been going to decision, but he's been getting hurt in these fights. You know, the Till fight in the 2nd round, he got dropped with an elbow. The Jared Cannonier fight in that 3rd round, he was wobbling all over the place. So yes, it's logical to think that this fight goes 3. It should be a 5-round fight, by the way, but it's logical to think that it goes 3 based off their history. But again, man, anything can happen. Like with that Glover versus Yuri fight, I was like, yeah, but there's no way Yuri's going to sub him. And then Yuri subs him. So, I mean, I'm not going to write off a finish on either side here, let alone on Vettori. Like, I know that he's known for his decisions. I know this. I know he's not known for finishing anything. But Whittaker has been dropped in many, many fights. Whittaker's been wobbled in many fights. This dude Vettori's hungry. So, I mean, it kind of sounds like I'm leaning towards Vettori, but I don't know. But I just think Whittaker's so much better than him. It's just, at what point do we start to be concerned about Whittaker not being Whittaker? And I feel like I've been saying this for the last few fights, and he's been showing out.
Me too.
And I guess it's also because I'm bummed out because, like, back in the day, I remember betting Whittaker at dog odds against Derek Brunson. I remember betting Whittaker at dog odds against Uriah Hall. Like, you know how stupid that sounds right now? Like, could you imagine a world where Robert Whittaker is an underdog to Derek Brunson and Uriah Hall? I bet him in both those fights as an underdog. So now, you know, everybody's caught on that this guy's fucking good. You got to lay -2 something on him. You know, I feel like I've already, you know, cashed in on Whittaker and I'm good now. You know, I don't need to lay -2 something on him. I've already gotten my dog money in the spots where he was undervalued. Now the market's caught up. He is where he should be. So I'm good on it. To me, is Vettori ready to, you know, kind of, should we say, get over the hump? Because I mean, he's gotten a title shot before. It's not like this guy's been struggling, but get over the hump in the sense of, is he ready to be the #1 contender in the middleweight division? Because to beat Robert Whittaker, I mean, to be the #1 contender, you have to beat Robert Whittaker, period.
Dan, I swear, if Marvin Vettori gets his first knockout win in the UFC and it's over Robert freaking Whittaker, I will lose my mind. He's 12-1 to win by KO. And just because of this conversation, I'm going to have to throw some beer money on that bad boy. But yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. It's we're seeing a mass changing of the guard in the UFC today, right? Like all these young, hungry prospects are finally getting one up and over these veterans. And it's happening week after week after week. I already said, I get why Rob is favored. I'm tempted on the dog. I think this fight is going to play out closely. And even though I see what you're saying, I talked about the drop in the Jack Hermanson fight myself. I just don't know that Rob is the guy to get caught by a stiff jab like that from Marvin Vettori. So I still think this fight is probably going to go 15 minutes. The time is coming that we will get a knockout prop against Robert Whittaker. I don't think it's Saturday, but I do think it's coming pretty soon here. I hope Marvin Vettori wins. I think that would be a fun, shift up of things in the division, really show that he is a top 5 guy. He's going to get another crack at the title. And who knows what happens if Israel Adesanya doesn't keep the belt. It would be a fun rivalry to see those two guys in there with each other again. I'm excited for this one.
And then on the flip side, I'm curious to see when the time that Vettori finally goes down is, because this guy, he's got that blockhead like Izzy like to talk about. This guy's got a granite chin. You watch his fight with Paulo Costa. One doesn't simply eat 163 strikes against Paulo Costa. And someone could say, oh, but Paulo didn't knock out Luke Rockhold. It's like, yeah, but if you watch that fight, firstly, Luke was very defensively responsible. He was kind of running away the entire time he had his hands up, because in the past when he's gotten caught, he's taken a lot of risk. He didn't take too many risks in this fight. And put on your tinfoil hat, Paulo Costa did knock out Luke Rockhold with a body shot, but it was called a low blow. So, and then they both gassed out in the Salt Lake City elevation. So it was what it was. But, a lot of us think that fight should have actually been stopped with the body shot. Similar to, you remember when Kamaru and Colby fought the first time and there was a body shot that was called a low blow, and there were face shots that were called eye pokes. And Right. Hey, listen, it's a vet tactic. I respect it. You
is.
know, I respect the towel trick. I respect grabbing the fence. Like, I know people cry like bitches about it, but to me, it's like, if you know the rules, play by the rules in terms of gaming the system. Like, if you know you can get away with 2 warnings, 3 warnings, all right, then fucking take advantage of that, man. I mean,
John
at the end
Jones
of the day,
always took his first 2 eye pokes, man.
this is a fist fight at the end of the day. So you got to do what you got to do, and know others to know yourself to know others. Period. So yeah, I'm gonna go Whittaker, but I'm just sketched about it because at some point I think that drop off will come. I just don't know when it's gonna be. So I don't know. No
Agreed.
confidence, but
Definitely not laying the chalk. That's all
I
it
look
comes down
forward
to.
to the fight, though. I look forward to it. It's going to be a hell of a fight. I mean, what Robert Whittaker fight is not a hell of a fight. So,
Exactly.
and Vettori is a hungry dude. So, yeah, I like it. All right. Featured bout. It should be Charles Jourdain versus Nathaniel Wood, but I guess the featured bout is Alessio Di Chirico versus Roman Kopylov. So we got Alessio Di Chirico, he's 13-6, representing Italia, taking on Roman Kopylov, who's 8-2, representing Russia. Currently, they got it -110 apiece. So I get it. He's an Ov. His name's Kopylov. So you think, oh yeah, I'm taking the Russian at pick 'em odds, but it's like there's some asterisks there, guys. He's not your typical Russian. He's not your typical Ov. Like, this guy's not going to come out here and grind anybody out. This guy's more of like a point striker. Not the most threatening, not the most physically imposing. I do kind of think that he might be a little better than he's shown in the UFC. And also, I know it's a terrible look to get submitted by what's his name? By Carl Roberson, but you got to put context into it. This was Carl Roberson before his mojo had been taken from him, and at one point, Carl Roberson, and people were talking like he was a hot prospect. So just because now he's damaged goods, just because now he's washed up, doesn't mean that was always the case. At one point, the kid was a prospect, and that's around the time when he beat Kopylov. So Kopylov fought a confident Carl Roberson. He didn't fight the Carl Roberson with no mojo. So, I'm not making excuses with him. That's just for him. That's just kind of how I viewed it. And then the Duraev fight, look, Duraev put it on him. Duraev whooped his ass, but Roman still had a moment or two. I think he might have even wobbled Duraev in that fight. So it's just about, a young kid like this. He's got to still be in his 20s, right? No, he's not actually. He's 31. It's funny because he fights like
I
once
thought he
every
was.
he barely ever fights. Like, he fought in 2019, then he didn't fight again until 2021. So the years passed. So I still view him as that kid that was fighting in Russia who was in his 20s, but now he's 31, which is still young in my opinion. And with Alessio Di Chirico, I mean, I think it's always been the same case with Alessio Di Chirico. He's just kind of just solid, nothing special, just average, can stick around in the UFC for a little bit. My issue with Alessio Di Chirico is, when you're laying chalk on a guy like Di Chirico, I laid chalk on this guy against Gareth McClellan, who thinking oh, this is about to be easy ass money. He made me sweat during that shit, right? So all I'm trying to say here is that he can fight competitive with a lot of guys for sure, but when you're laying chalk on a guy like that, don't expect him to come out here and show out. Is all I gotta say. So I expect this to be a closely contested fight. Not really sure which way I'm leaning, but I'll pick Di Chirico just because of the experience and that. But I'm not gonna be surprised to see Roman Kopylov show a better version of himself. Got those first 2 fights under his belt, has an opponent here who's not, who's not like this world-breaking talent, who's not, some Alessio Di Chirico is just average. So it's not going to surprise me to see Roman Kopylov come out here and win this fight. But based on what I've seen right now, I'll go with Di Chirico, but I don't think he's going to run away with it. I don't think he's going to, make some kind of statement. I just think it's going to be just a close ass fight.
Yeah, man, I'm right there with you. This is another potential split decision prop I think that you could hit. I know that Kopylov is going to have the advantage here on the feet. The problem is the kid made it all the way to the UFC without learning basic grappling defense. Like, the last fight he was in, he got mounted like he had no defense whatsoever stopping his opponent getting there to mount. And then once he got mounted, Dan, I know you do jujitsu. I know you've been to grappling class once or twice. Day one, they teach 4-year-olds. You bring your elbows in, you put them on your opponent's thighs, hands on the hips. You bump, you explode, you push away. That's how you get out of mount. And this kid is laying flat on his back with a world-class MMA fighter on him, throwing hammers from the bottom. Like, how do you get to the UFC without knowing basic mount defense? Now, I know you have to use, not both hands in MMA because you could get punched in the face, but wing and hammer fist from bottom ain't it, Dan. Like, that's his ground game is so atrocious. I can't trust Alessio Di Chirico anymore. He never turned into the fighter that I thought he could be. He pot shots. He's low volume on the feet. Reminds me a little bit of Sam Alvey. If he catch you with a big one, he's got power. He can put you down. But the rest of the time, he's going to be losing the kickboxing fight because he just doesn't throw enough. Now, back when he first got into the UFC, Alessio actually used his grappling pretty regularly. His last couple fights, he's kind of forgotten about wrestling. If he goes back to his grappling in this fight, Dan, I think it's going to be a minus 500 spot. Like, Alessio is just going to maul Roman Kopylov on the ground if he grapples. The problem is I can't trust him to necessarily go out there and grapple. And as long as this thing is a kickboxing match, you're just going to be screaming at the TV for him to throw more. And I don't want to have my money in that spot. I've done that a few too many times. I'm not a fan of yelling at the TV because the guy just doesn't feel like throwing. So I'm going to be in the same boat as you. I'm going to pick Alessio Di Chirico. However, I'm not going to be betting this fight.
Are we calling Alessio Di Chirico Italian Sam Alvey? Is that what we're doing here, Clint?
That is what we're doing. Absolutely.
No, I think the issue with Kopylov, I don't think it's that he doesn't know what he's doing per se. I think it's more so sometimes in the heat of the battle, in the heat of the moment, certain people do uncharacteristic things. Like Chris Weidman, before he got hit in the head so many times, you could say he was a pretty intelligent guy or whatever. Like, I doubt that he was out there practicing those spinning hook kicks, like he did in that Rockhold fight that cost him his belt. Like, I doubt that it was his plan to, I'm gonna throw a spinning hook kick and then land on the ground and get pounded out. Like, I think that
it's MMA, Dan. If plan A fails, you spin and kick. That's what you do.
It was heat of the moment, whereas I doubt Roman Kopylov's practicing getting mounted and then throwing punches from bottom in the gym. I think he knows what to do there. It's just, Duraev's a very heavy guy. Duraev's a very scary Russian. Heat of the battle, heat of the moment, he did some stupid shit. So is he going to do that stupid shit again here? I mean, I don't know. I really have no idea how this fight's going to play out. I think that the minus 110 is appropriate based on how I view it, but others might view it differently. Others might think that there's a clear path for this guy or for that guy, or Alessio's got a big edge here and Kopylov's got a big edge there. I just don't see it before the fact. Maybe after the fact, maybe someone's going to come out here, get a first round knockout. Maybe someone's going to come out here, win 3 rounds decisively, and it turns out it shouldn't have been minus 110. So yeah, but going into it before the fact, I don't know shit about how this fight's going to play out. So to me, it's minus 110 a piece. I think is accurate. So may the best man win. I'll lean Di Chirico, but I don't know, and it's okay to say you don't know. You don't have to bet on every single fucking fight. You don't have to, throw darts and this and that. I don't know. So I'll sit back and watch, period.
Agreed.
And everybody do me a huge favor. Smash that like button for me. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I really appreciate it. So next up in the lightweight division, we got a bit of a grudge match, Clint. We got Nasrat Paris. He's 13-5, taking on John Makdessi, or as we like to say in Paris, France, Jean Makdessi. He's 18-7. And currently they got it. Hold up 1 second. The fight odds are like kind of like crooked. So like you don't know which one's for which fight. So I'm gonna pull up best fight odds. Okay, they got it. Oh
minus
shit!
30 plus 195. It looks like.
Nasrat Paris minus 230. The comeback on Jean Makdessi is plus 195. Yeah, I had to look it up to make sure that was the right fight. Like, goddamn, that seems kind of wide. I mean, listen, I think at this point, no disrespect to Nasrat, I enjoy watching him fight, but I think we can say that he's kind of a busted prospect. He's not the guy that people thought he was going to be. Listen, he's still aggressive. He still can crack. He still comes to fight. He's still experienced. I respect him. He's going to probably stick around for a little bit. But, the way people were regarding him when he was on his little streak and when he first came into the UFC was like this guy, he was like a minus 330 favorite against Drew Dober, right? So people have consistently been overvaluing him throughout his entire career. I mean, Bobby Green was only like minus 150 in that fight. I bet him there. Bobby Green, that is. And then John Makdessi. So, like, what's interesting about John Makdessi is, firstly, he's been in the UFC since, off the top of my head, I think it's 2010, but let me just double check that. So this dude's been in the UFC since 2010. I was correct. When you can stick around in the UFC for 12 years, Clint, for over 12 years, like that counts for a lot, man. That is like, how many times do you see guys, don't even get past their first contract and they get released, 2 fights and out, 3 fights and out, 4 fights and out, don't even make it to their second contract. You see it time in, time out. I mean, how many times do you see people complaining about, oh my God, this guy got cut, oh my God, that guy got cut, this and that? This dude's been in the UFC 12 fucking years. So that right there, you tip your cap to some shit like that. You know what I mean? So much respect to John Makdessi for passing the test of time, making it this long. And whenever I count this guy out, that last fight against Bahamondes, in retrospect, there was a lot of value on Makdessi in that spot, but I thought Bahamondes was going to come out here and kick Makdessi's jaw into the 5th row. Turns out he did it to his next opponent, but he didn't do it to Makdessi when I wanted him to. Makdessi will surprise you when you least expect it. And so here's the thing, man. I mean, when you look at the numbers, they match up pretty evenly, like in terms of the strikes landed, the strikes absorbed, blah, blah, blah. The volume, the pace is pretty, consistent with both. Here's my concern, though. Nasrat's 10 years younger than him, and that counts for a lot for the most part. Now, I know Bahamondes was also like 10 years younger than him, and it didn't matter. But, it's been like over a year since that fight. Not that Nasrat's getting any younger, but Makdessi's certainly not getting any younger. So at some point, there's also going to be a drop off for a guy like Makdessi, who's already had broken jaws before, who's already talked about retirement before. But
there's also surgery for this fight.
Yeah, exactly. Like, only fights once every few years and this and that. But like, there's also a chance this fight plays out closer than the line indicates, because we know what Nasrat brings to the table. He's a southpaw. He's got a nasty overhand left. Like, we know this already. From time to time, he can bully certain people. But Makdessi's got a very disciplined style. He's got a Taekwondo background, kind of doesn't take any unnecessary risks, kind of plays it safe, and kind of just pot shots guys a little bit. I mean, we saw someone just pot shot Nasrat one fight ago. Now, granted, I think that Bobby Green's got way better hands than Makdessi, but just saying, a veteran showed that, he had some tactics in the back pocket for a young kid like Haqparast. So the reason we got to talk like this is because Haqparast is minus 230. Minus 230 implies that Haqparast is going to come out here, swing that big overhand left, and break Makdessi's jaw and be done with it and get a performance of the night bonus. And I'm just thinking to myself, if that doesn't happen, this has the potential to play out as a 3-round fight that's very close. You look at Nasrat's last, 4 fights, man? I mean, I don't really think that he looked that good in the Rafa Garcia fight. Like, I thought there were some sketchy moments. I thought that my boy was a little soft around the midsection. I thought the Dan Hooker fight, like, hey, now we're giving you this is your chance to come out here and make a name for yourself against, an established guy who takes a lot of damage, an established guy who's there to be hit, who's been in the wars. And, Dan Hooker looked like he got a fucking scholarship to Penn State for their D1 wrestling program. You know what I mean? In that fight. And then the next fight, Bobby Green looked like Floyd Mayweather against him. So to me, I'm confident saying that Haqparast is a busted prospect. I'm just not confident saying that Makdessi wins this fight. I really don't know. So I lean Haqparast. He's 10 years younger. He's got a 4-inch reach advantage, blah, blah, blah. They can keep up in pace. But it's not going to fucking surprise me if Makdessi comes out here and weasels out another close split decision, assuming, his jaw doesn't get launched.
Completely agree. Dan, I completely underestimated John Makdessi, especially in that Bahamondes fight. I said awful, terrible things about John Makdessi. I pronounced him dead on arrival for that fight. That was the spot where the UFC was trying to, launch a future star off of the name of an old veteran. And he came out and punched my guy in the mouth. I mean, John Makdessi is not a guy that you can simply walk over. He's still got it. He hits hard. He's got that game sense. He definitely hangs in the fight. The toughness is all still there. Yeah, Nasrat as a busted prospect doesn't necessarily scream like value to me in the minus 200s. I don't want to lay that kind of a price tag against a guy like John Makdessi. Both guys coming off injuries, both guys coming off of surgeries. It's a complete stay away for me, Dan. It's dog or pass because of everything that's going on. But at a certain point, these older veterans, especially at the lower weight classes, the speed goes. They just drop off a cliff, and then they're not quite what they used to be. I was ready to pronounce him dead last fight. I'm not going to do it again this fight, but I have the same exact concerns. I have the same exact fears. So I'm going to pick Nasrat to get the win. I think the split decision, like you said, is actually a half decent look, and I wouldn't blame anybody for taking a shot on the dog in this fight. I don't know that either of them are necessarily going to get the finish. I didn't know this was a bad blood fight until I saw the clip that the UFC put out just like earlier this afternoon that I guess they used to be training partners. And that's one of those things where just that extra little mental edge for John Makdessi is like, oh, okay, all right. Like it kind of entices me a little bit more on the dog side, thinking he's coming in with that chip on his shoulder. But definitely going to be a fun fight to watch. I hope it's a banger. I hope they both get, swollen, puffy faces and bleed all over the cage for us. And I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it, man. I'll pick Nasrat to go ahead and squeeze out a decision win here. But again, not going to be at all surprised if this one's close.
You know what's funny about that? Like, I kind of view it oppositely, and I hope that you're right and that I'm wrong, because oftentimes with these grudge matches, like, you hate the guy so much, I can't lose to this guy, so they play it safe. They don't want to take any unnecessary risks and get caught, and they kind of just stare at each other. Whereas, like, if you get two friends in there, they'll bang it out, dude. Like, they'll go out there and fucking leave it all on the line when you got two friends in there. But when you got two guys that don't like each other, they're very tense. They don't want to take that unnecessary risk. So
you can't lose. You can't lose to the guy that you hate, Dan. You can't run the risk of being the dude getting flatlined and have the UFC tweet out the clip of you going down. That extra pressure of being the one on the wrong end of the punch is awful when it's a guy you hate.
Exactly. So there's a difference between fighting not to lose and fighting to win, right? So let's see the approach. Now, next up, also on the main card in the featherweight division, we got two UFC debutants. We got William Gomi. He's 10-2. It says he's representing France, but he's actually from Senegal in Africa. He's taking on Jourdain Arens, who's 13-3. And currently, they got it. William Gomi minus 215. The comeback on Jourdain Arens is plus 185. So, I mean, I kind of view it like this. You guys know that, you know how I feel about the African fighters, man. I mean, I talk about it all the time. A different kind of physicality, different kind of power. Also, super tough. It's just what I don't like about this kid, William Gomi, is the volume is kind of on the lower side. Like, if these guys are going to bang it out, and William Gomi is not going to knock out Arens, I think Arens got more volume than him on the feet. That's one thing. Like, Aaron, he's very long, he's tall, kind of likes to throw side kicks to the knee and front kicks to the knee, and kind of likes to bust up that lead leg and this and that. He's going to be the more active guy standing. It's just that when William Gomi actually decides to go, his explosiveness, his athleticism, his physicality is on a different level than this Arens guy. So it's like the volume is going to be there for Arens, but the bigger moments are most likely going to be there for Gomis. And then the point that, separates them is on the mat. Not that Gomis is some D1 wrestler or anything, but, Arens does get taken down in a large majority of his fights. William Gomis has shown, some somewhat competency on the mat, so I can see him kind of edging it out there. Not exactly sure if minus 215 is warranted in this spot. I kind of just got to see how they perform under the bright lights, because sometimes you'll see certain things in the regional footage, but then they come to the big show and perform completely different. So I just got to kind of sit back, see how they perform, and take it from there. I'll lean Gomi to get it done.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. I actually kind of like Gomi from a DraftKings perspective. I think he's got some finishing upside here in this fight. I don't want to lay minus 215. I'm not a big fan of laying that kind of price tag on unproven fighters. He's a little low volume for me. I'm going to make that Sam Alvey comparison again when it's on the feet. He does the pot shot thing.
African Sam Alvey.
African Sam Alvey. They're all over this card, man. They should just get him a VIP box for this one, since they're bringing all the guys that fight like him in here this week. That's kind of my concern. He's got big power. He's definitely fast. He's definitely athletic, but he just doesn't let it go. If he would let it go, I think he would be a lot more effective. But the biggest issue for me here is the ground game, the grappling. Gomi's got some nasty ground and pound, man. The elbows, he's super active and unloads once he gets in dominant position on somebody. And I've seen this Jourdain Arens just make egregious mistakes on the mat, man. He lets people get their hooks in once they get that, like, that side back control that wrestlers like to use where they got the seatbelt hook on you and they go to work punching. He just lets people take the full back. Like as soon as you get to that position, he's like, oh, you want the hooks in for a rear naked choke? Go for it. Go ahead. So Gomi's going to have no problem with this guy once it hits the ground. And I think he can absolutely finish there, whether it's a TKO or a submission, that's up to him. But I think it's going to be super live for him to get a finish in this fight. As long as it's on the feet, I think it will be close, but I think Gomi will lure Arens into that low volume back and forth type of trade that he likes because he can back you off with that power. Whenever he hits you, you don't really feel like coming forward and eating that again. So even though I think Arens could win on volume, I don't think he will because he won't like getting hit. So yeah, man, I think it's Gomi's fight to lose. He's going to be the hometown guy. He's training with, the main eventer here in this spot. He comes out of the same gym, I believe, as Ciryl Gane does. So I kind of expect him to be the guy that's getting propped up here, and I expect him to get the win. Maybe inside the distance is the way to go.
So kicking off the main card, we got what I like to consider the featured bout and the fight to watch. In the featherweight division, we got Ciryl Gane. He's 13-5-1, taking on Nathaniel the Prospect Wood, who is 18-5. At what point do we stop calling him the prospect? At what point? I mean, but I don't want to call him a busted prospect either because I still think he's a super talented guy. Like, I don't think he's been figured out or anything. I still think his better years are ahead. So, but he's been the prospect since he was like fucking 12 or some shit. And
man,
now
these young fighters, so somebody need managers, teammates. They got to get in with these young guys and explain to them, when you set yourself a fight name, you're going to have that until you're 50 years old. Like, you got to think about what you want to be called, because you're right. Like, he's going to hit a certain point that it's like, damn, man, do I want to still be called the prospect? Like, if he got a UFC belt, are they still going to call him the prospect? Like, you got to think about these kinds of things, man.
Yeah, 100%. So a lot to talk about in this fight because obviously, it is at featherweight. Nathaniel Wood's moving up at featherweight. And I hear a lot of people talking about how, oh my God, it's a bantamweight versus a guy that used to fight at lightweight. And I'm like, guys, like, just stop. Like, that's irrelevant. And the reason why it's irrelevant is how many times have you seen guys move up in weight class and look amazing? Look at the guy in the co-main event of this card, Robert Whittaker. I bet a lot of y'all forgot he used to fight at 170 pounds and, was kind of like a 500 fighter there. Lost to Court McGee. Lost the Wonder Boy. Like, dude was, he was talented, but it was kind of sketchy. Goes up to 85s, goes on a fucking title run. Dustin Poirier. Now, he was a top 5 guy at featherweight, but when he moved up to lightweight, he became an interim champion. So I'm just saying, like, you can't look at it from the lens of, oh, this is a bantamweight versus a lightweight. You cannot do that. You'll be doing yourself a big disservice looking at it like that. Like, I'm not sitting here saying Wood's going to win. Maybe Wood wins, maybe Wood doesn't win. But all I'm saying is that's not the angle that I'm approaching this from. You cannot do that. You're putting yourself at a disadvantage long term looking at fights like that. Because how many fucking times do you see these guys look one way in one weight class? You think, oh yeah, he's too small for this upper weight class, and then Kelvin Gastelum, was hit or miss at 170, goes up to 85s. I know now he's on kind of the downside, but at the time that he did it, made it all the way to an interim title shot against Izzy and gave Izzy arguably his toughest fight to date. I mean, he hasn't returned the same since then, but prior to that, dude, there was at one point in Kelvin Gastelum's career when he had an 100% knockdown rate at middleweight, meaning every single middleweight he fought, win or lose, he knocked them all down. So all I'm trying to say is that Nathaniel Wood moving up to 45, that's not a bad thing. Like, you cannot view it as, oh, what's this little midget doing up with the big boys? You cannot view it like that. Is all I'm saying here. This is not, Huntsucker dropping a 205, or it don't fucking matter what weight class Huntsucker fights at. Nathaniel Wood's a skilled guy. The guy was apparently killing himself to make 35s. I doubt he ever goes back to 35s ever again, even if he loses this fight here. So now the question is, what's the ceiling on Wood? at featherweight. That's what I need to know, because I think that he can definitely beat some guys. He's a very skilled fighter. I mean, you already know about his leg kicking game, and it's not just the calf kicks. I mean, look at that stabbing front kick, keeps his hands nice and high. I know he's there to be hit, but I also have questions of, is the durability, is his reaction to these shots gonna be better without having to kill himself to cut weight anymore? You know, because I mean, like, even Dustin Poirier was criticized, you know, at featherweight when Akira fucking Khorassani dropped him to one knee. Then he goes up to lightweight, and I mean, he's eating Justin Gaethje's flush shots. He's eating, you know, so I'm just saying, like, moving up will help your durability out. And another thing that's interesting, because you look at the size difference between Charles Jourdain and Nathaniel. And Nathaniel's 5'6", so you think like, oh, what's this little midget doing here? And actually, by the way, the champ in this weight class is 5'6". Between you and me, he's like 5'5" or 5'4", but he's listed at 5'6". But I'm just saying,
he just got TKO'd by Hasbulla though.
Yo, Hasbulla set him up, man. I didn't see that coming.
That was gorgeous.
Yeah. And you can't do shit about it either. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, so Nathaniel Wood, he's actually like a long 5'6". Like, he's got a longer reach than Max Holloway. He's got the same reach as Charles Jourdain. So like, and what's funny is when he fought Casey Kenny, they're both listed at the same height, but Nathaniel Wood looked like the longer guy. So he's got like long arms and is like tall for a short dude, if that makes sense. Like, he like because here's my point. Like, you look at like Chad Mendes, right? Like, back in the day, same height as Nathaniel Wood, 5'6", but he's like short, stocky, you know, probably has like a 64-inch reach, right? Like, you know, whereas this kid Wood is kind of, he's a tall, short dude. He's got like a 70-inch reach for a 5'6" guy, and he fights long. That's the interesting thing. But his opponent also fights long, and his opponent, I am very, very impressed with Charles Jourdain, and I've been impressed this whole time. And I hear people talking about how Charles Jourdain can be broken because he got caught in a Darce choke by Julian Erosa. And I'm thinking to myself, if you've ever grappled before and you've been caught in a Darce choke, like, when you get caught in that choke and it's fully locked in, like, how is that breaking? Like, the choke was locked in. What are you supposed to do? Like, fucking pull a knife out and stab him, pull a lighter out and burn his armpit? Like, what the fuck are you supposed to do? Like, you get caught in the choke, you get caught in the choke. So I don't view that as, oh, Charles Jourdain can be broken or this or that. I view that as he got caught. When a guy that's 6'1", like Julian Erosa is, gets those long arms, you know how the long men are with the long man chokes. You know, they got a cheat code with them long arms. And I thought Charles Jourdain actually looked good in that fight. He dropped Julian Erosa, which a lot of people tend to do. But you guys know the blueprint on Julian Erosa. You either drop him and knock him out, or you drop him, don't knock him out, and he comes back and wins the fight. Like, that's always the case with Julian Erosa. But since that fight, I feel like Charles Jourdain has turned a corner. The Uul fight was an absolute clinic. The next fight against Lando Venata made easy work of him. The Burgos fight, now I know it was in New York. Burgos, you know, did he get a hometown decision? Did he not? This, that, yeah, whatever.
Maybe
but the bottom line is, like, did he not? Is he not like the only guy to like really, really whoop Burgos on the feet? Because, like, look, I get it. Cater and Barboza, you know, they both knocked out Burgos, but those fights were competitive, standing. Like, both guys had big moments back and forth striking, you know, in the Barboza and the Cater fights. Like, there was rounds won by both guys. Whereas with Charles Jourdain and Shane Burgos, Shane didn't want to bang with him. I've never seen Shane Burgos not want to bang with anyone before. That was eye-opening. The reason Shane banked rounds, you know, people talk about this weakness in grappling for Jourdain. If he really had a weakness in grappling, he would have been submitted in the first round. Yeah, he got held down, you know, and it was what it was, and that's something you need to address. But I don't think that's indicative of, oh, just take this guy down one time and you're gonna win the fight. Like, I don't think it's a Melvin Gillard situation where, you know, you put in a choke that's not even fully locked in, he's gonna tap out. I don't think it's like that at all. I think this kid Charles Jourdain is super tough, and maybe you can, you know, stall and, you know, kill the clock a little bit by holding him down, by taking him down. But I don't think you're just gonna come out there, pass him out, pound him out, take his back, choke him out, you know, this and that. So I think his ground game is underrated, but on the feet is where it's at with him. I've never seen Shane Burgos unwilling to trade with someone. Like, can you name me the last time Shane Burgos was unwilling to trade with someone? Because, like I said, when he got knocked out by Cater and Barboza, those were wars up until those points. So here's my thing. I lean Jourdain. I really do. But I still kind of got to see how My dog's barking. Does that mean that Nathaniel Wood's about to win? Um, I still kind of need to see like what Nathaniel Wood's really going to look like against a real guy at featherweight. This ain't no Charles Rosa anymore. Where respect to Charles Rosa, he's like stupid tough and stuff like that. But in saying he's stupid tough, like he's slow, he's unathletic. He can just take an ass whooping is what he can do. He's really fucking good at getting his ass whooped. But Nathaniel Wood, and Charles Jourdain, this is a completely different fight. I think it's going to be competitive. I think it's going to be fun. I'm just curious if because I was questioning, does Nathaniel Wood, sometimes his reaction to shots are a certain way. Was it because of the weight cuts, or is there actually maybe, a question about the chin or not? That question will be answered Saturday night, Clint. I mean, Charles Jourdain is going to test that chin of Nathaniel Wood. So I really want to see what happens there. We know Charles Jourdain is a slow starter. Nathaniel Wood's a very fast starter, man. So I definitely see Nathaniel Wood coming out here winning this first round. But beyond that, what happens there? What happens once Charles Jourdain finds his range, finds his groove, and starts getting into his flow? Because his flow is fucking scary, and it's been getting better as the years progress. He was born in 1995, Clint. He's just a kid. So yeah. I got Charles Jourdain, but I expect it to be a serious fight.
Dan, I'm right there with you. You broke that thing down gorgeously. You said everything that I could have wanted to say on this fight. And I think Charles Jourdain getting minus 135 is a steal of a line, honestly. Nathaniel Wood is a kid that I know we can't keep it as simple as he's too small in this fight class. We can't keep it that simple, but it's a factor. It's something we got to keep in mind. People talk about Charles Jourdain and his bad takedown defense, being able to be out wrestled, and that's something that he struggles with. And Nathaniel Wood has been able to take some people to the ground before, but that size all of a sudden comes into question here. Is he going to be strong enough to outmuscle a guy like Charles Jourdain? Will Jourdain feel out of place on the ground? Will he be able to kick off and get back to his feet if he wants to? I think he probably can. And he was able to handle everything a much larger man like Shane Burgos was able to, throw at him from a grappling perspective in his last fight and damn near break the dude in half in the third round. We've seen Nathaniel Wood slows down the deeper the fights go. You may want to accredit that to the tough weight cut and something that's down a weight class, a problem that he had before he jumped up. But I'm not so sure that's the case, man. He starts fast, and as soon as that second round comes around, he's just a little slower. And then that third round, he's a little slower. And in the second round, he starts getting hit a little bit more. The leg kicks come a little more naked. The counter shots start landing a little harder. That's been his whole career. We've got Charles Jourdain, a guy who cranks up the volume in his fight the deeper it goes, versus Nathaniel Wood, a guy that starts fast, is a little undersized, and slows down the longer the fight goes. That's a perfect recipe for a round 3 sprinkle, baby. I think Charles Jourdain is going to knock out Nathaniel Wood in the second or the third round. And honestly, I don't mind 135. I know there's a lot of love coming in on Nathaniel Wood. Drive this line down. Give me a good number. I'm sitting tight. Let's see how low this goes. But I also think there's a good chance Nathaniel Wood wins that first round just because of the way this fight matches up. If you want to roll the dice, we've seen Jourdain go out there and choke somebody out in the first round. You completely miss your chance on the fight if you play it that way. But this is a nice live betting spot, in my opinion. If he goes out there and loses that first round, all of a sudden you're getting plus 120, plus 150 on Charles Jourdain, the guy is going to be in the fight deeper. And then you're not laying chalk on it. That's kind of the way I like to approach it. I may not be able to live bet this week, Dan, so I might have to bite the bullet early going in on this one. But I agree with you. Couldn't be there with you more. I like Charles this week.
Leo's barking, so I don't know. Whenever the dog barks, you never know if the underdog's going to come through. But all I'm saying is, even though I do lean, Charles Jourdain, of course, I do suspect Nathaniel Wood is going to look better at this weight class. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, what's this little guy doing moving up? I think he's going to look better at this weight class, to be honest. But he's not. This is no tune-up fight. This is no gimme. This is no, get your feet wet. Charles Rosa was the get your feet wet. Now you're in here with the Sharks. So let's see. I'm very excited to see how that one plays out. Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between two German fighters. We got Dustin Stoltzfus. He's actually from the States, but he's got a German lineage. He's 14-4, taking on Abus Magomedov, who's 24-4. You'd think with a name like that he's Russian, but he's actually German. Currently, they got it I boost Magomedov -260. The comeback on Dustin Stoltzfus plus 230. I've been waiting for Abus to make his debut for a long time. You know, I remember him back in the PFL. Really enjoyed his fights. You know, shout out to my boy Lewis Taylor who actually beat him in the finals. Fucking love Lewis Taylor.
That was awesome.
That's the homie.
And
I heard you got
that's the feel good story, Dan. That's the guy you want to see win $1 million gets the win by KO like that at the end of a tournament. That was a good time.
Yeah, that was great. I heard you got a bet on this fight, so I'm gonna let you take it first. But while we do this little switch from me talking to Clint talking, everybody smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, and Clint, I heard you got a bet on this fight.
Yeah, man, I do. It is rare. It is rare that I come out and I just lay the wood. It's something I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with, I think. I've had a few too many parlays bust on something like a Leon Edwards head kick, if you know what I mean. So I'm getting more comfortable with, you know what? If I've got a guy that is my A1, he is my steak sauce for the fight night. I don't want to tie him to a B string read. I don't want to tie him to something that is not quite as confident and have my parlay get cracked in half because of that second leg. You know, that's what happened to me last week where I had to find that other parlay leg. I wanted Paulo Costa. I knew that, but who to tie him with? Well, Usman seems safe enough, right? Nope. So this week, Dan, I am just loading on my guy, the bus. You know, Abus is actually, he's Dagestani. So he is technically Russian. They moved to Germany when he was like 14, 15 years old or something like that. So he's got more of a striking style than he does that classic grappling game that you see from these Russians, but it's in his back pocket. He can still grapple. He knows what he's doing there on the mat, but his striking is nasty. And you talked about his PFL run. Dude, he looked like a complete monster in those first couple of fights in the PFL. And then you get a young kid competing for $1 million against a hard-hitting veteran in the PFL finals. He slipped up. You know what I mean? You got to respect those veterans. You can't go in there with a big head thinking you're just going to run through them. And he didn't respect his opponent. He got caught. He paid that lesson. And we haven't seen him for 2 years. You know what happens when these 29, 30-year-old kids disappear for 2 years and then come back and you peep their Instagram and they're in the best shape you've ever seen them? He's been in the lab, Dan. I expect this guy to come back, look better than he ever has before. And they're throwing him a bit of a bone here with my poor guy, Dustin Stoltzfus. Now, I've gone to war with Dustin a couple times already. I think he's a bit underrated. He's got a hard-nosed grappling style that'll cause some people problems, but he's shown that he makes bad in-fight decisions. He's shown that he can get outstruck by a guy like Dwight Grant, who's a 170-pounder coming up on short notice to 185, and he damn near let that guy beat him just a couple weeks ago. So I think this is a beautiful spot for Abus. He's going to have a massive speed advantage on the feet. If Dustin decides to test his striking out in this spot, I think he's going to get put down, and I think he's going to get put down bad. If Dustin comes out and grapples the way that we've seen him do before, even if he is able to out-grapple this man, which I'm not convinced he can for 15 minutes, we've seen him fall apart in the second and the third rounds of fights. So even if he ends up getting up 1-0 or 2-0 going into the end of this fight, Dustin can still melt down for me, and I can still get a win out of this thing. Honestly, I think Abus is going to run through this guy. I think it's going to be a first or a second round KO. Maybe he, locks up a sub when Dustin makes a mistake or something like that. But I think the majority of this fight is going to take place on the feet. People are not ready for what this kid can bring. The way he roasts the body, the way he has that fast 1-2 down the pipe. Dustin's going to have a big wake-up call when he gets touched by this guy. He's been durable up until this point, Dan, but I think Abus is going to knock him out.
Wow, I like the conviction. He's very, very confident in this spot, and I respect it. And Leo's barking, so I wonder if Dustin Stoltzfus is live to cash me another dog because I bet him in that last fight against Dwight Grant.
I did too.
So this is a tough one, man, because it's like Abus, obviously very talented, no questions asked. I mean, you saw the run he had in PFL. Knock dudes out with body kicks, with punches, can wrestle, can do it all. I just have questions if the finish doesn't come about what kind of dominance are we looking at? Because when you talk about, what is it, -270, like I need some guarantees here, right? And I think Stoltzfus, I know he didn't get off to the best run, but I thought he had moments in most of those fights. I thought that he won a couple rounds. I thought he won a round or two against Gerald Meerschaert. I thought that the Rodolfo fight was very close until the very end. And then the Dwight Grant fight, also a close fight. But the bottom line, the recurring theme is that these fights are pretty damn close. So can he make this one close too? And the reason I bring that up is because when Abus isn't getting those finishes, Abus's fights tend to be kind of close too. Like, just not, when I say close, he does the Russian coast, right? Like a little bit more on the lower volume side. Rounds can be up in the air before big moments. So stuff like that has me actually tempted to take maybe a half unit shot or a 1 unit shot on the other side, but not with not with any huge conviction either, because I we're talking about a Magomedov here. Even if he's a German Magomedov, he's still a Magomedov. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna pick Abus, but I'm not as confident as you. And if he destroys Dustin Stoltzfus, then holy shit, that's a great hammer spot for you. But I can just totally see this, playing out closer than the line indicates. So let's see.
I can respect it, Dan. I really can. And I don't like laying chalk big on debutantes like this generally, but this is a spot where I can't ignore how that last fight played out. I can't ignore how Dustin made it so close with a guy that he should have dominated in Grant. If Grant is strong enough to cause this guy problems in the grappling and the striking, Abus is definitely going to be able to cause him problems in those areas. As long as it's on the feet, Abus is winning. He can catch him in a sub on the ground. And honestly, Dustin is a guy that just doesn't have enough activity on the ground. He's kind of a blanket wrestler type of guy. So even if he gets 2 minutes of control time in a round, he still might lose that round. You know what I mean? I just think it's a good spot for Abus. We'll see. It's always a risk when you go that hard on a single fight, but I think he's a solid favorite spot here.
All right, so let's speed some things up. So next up in the lightweight division, we got Fares Ziam. He's 12-4, representing France, taking on Michael Figlak, who's 8-0. Currently, they got it. Figlak minus 200. The comeback on Ziam is plus 170. I took Ziam plus 170 here, 1 unit, only 1 unit. Listen, I think Figlak's actually very solid. I think he's got a bright future. Definitely no questions asked. But I think that Ziam's being a little bit underrated here. This is actually the biggest underdog price he's been in his entire UFC career. And when people talk about, oh, he's got no ground game, I think that there needs to be some context put on that. I think that certain things need to happen for Figlak to dominate him on the mat. Like if Figlak takes him down, but Figlak actually just stays in his guard and doesn't try to pass, that's where I think Figlak can kind of hold him down. But one thing that I've noticed Ziam do is he kind of likes to give up his back to get back up. Firstly, Ziam's takedown defense is actually pretty damn good. It's just once you get him down, him getting back up is the issue. But the trend I've noticed is if you're going to just hang out in his half guard or his full guard, that's where you can hold him down. But if you try to pass him out or you try to take his back, that's where he's able to explode and get back up, unless you're like a first round finishing specialist like Terrence McKinney, which Figlak is not. Figlak is just kind of like a solid, well-rounded dude who definitely deserves to be here. But I think at range that Ziam is the much sharper fighter. Even if the volume's on the lower side, I think that he's able to make his opponents fight at that slow pace because he's very, very sharp with his kickboxing, and he's only 25. And I feel like once this kid starts to feel comfortable, I won't be surprised to see him start getting some knockouts in there. So I actually do not see this as a minus 200 plus 170 type fight. I see this closer to pick him. So for that reason, I took a 1 unit shot on Fares Ziam.
I respect it, man. I see the same thing as you. I'm right there with you. I did not pull the trigger on the underdog bet, though, just because of the way Fares Ziam gets controlled on the mat. It's a spot where as long as this fight is standing, I think it's pick 'em or maybe slightly favored for Fares. I think he can win a kickboxing match here pretty cleanly. And like you mentioned, the takedown defense is getting better. He's got good hips. He can get those things back. He can stay in this thing. But if he does ever get his butt put on the mat, I can see him just losing a straight 5 minutes and poof, there's 1 round gone in this fight. So I think Fares Ziam is very, very live here, but I am not comfortable with his undefeated opponent stepping in here into the UFC. So I do think it's dog or pass from a betting perspective. Personally, it's going to be a pass for me because Fares is a guy that I've had mixed results with. So I'm similarly to the last fight for me, man. You're much more convicted than I am here. I wish you luck. I think you're on the right side, but I'm not going to put a bet on it myself.
I just got to share a little bit of personal news that I just got, bro. So I just passed my first real estate exam, bro.
Bro, yes.
Like the score just came out, man. Oh my God. So
Congrats.
I had to do a 75-hour prerequisite course, and you have to pass that. There's only one exam for that prerequisite. You do the 75-hour class, and then you pass that prerequisite course, and then you're allowed to sit for the state exam. So I fucking passed it, bro.
Bro, get
You
it.
don't understand the relief right now. Holy shit, bro.
Congrats, dude.
Oh
That's
my
huge.
god,
That is
bro.
awesome, man.
I have to fucking cry, bro. But anyways, next, so I mean, when you talk about my conviction, it's a 1-unit shot at plus 170. I just think the line's off. You know, it's not a max bet or anything, but
No, for sure.
you know, but still, let's see if there is value or not.
You know what, Dan? We talk about these fights week in and week out, and we pick winners and losers all the time. You putting any money on a guy is a conviction that I'm talking about. I know it's not a max bet. I know it's not a huge thing, but at the same time, just saying, hey, this underdog is live enough to get the win. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. That's enough for me. That's more conviction than I have in this fight. So, you know, I'll wish you luck.
Next up, thank you, brother. Next up in the middleweight division, we got Nasrat Imavov. Wow, this fight's early on the card, huh? He's 11-3, taking on Joaquin Buckley, who's 15-4. Currently, they got it. Nasrat Imavov minus 275. The comeback on Joaquin's plus 220. That's my issue. You know, I love me some Nasrat. It's just minus 275. Like, if it's minus 275, you better come out here and fucking starch this dude in the first round, which he has been starched in the first round before. But I'm just saying, like, I'm not sure if I quite see that result. Maybe not. But one thing about Buckley, like, we know he hits hard. We know he's talented. We know he's athletic. But, like, you know, there's always been some shaky moments here and there. But, dude, I thought that Jourdain fight was the best performance of his career. His combinations had never looked faster. His takedown defense had never looked better. I just felt like his all-around MMA game, he really put it together in that Jourdain fight, and it was a big step in the right direction. So here in this fight, what's interesting is obviously you consider Nasrat Imavov to be the longer guy here, being 6'3" versus, 5'10", but it's actually Buckley that's got the reach advantage. But even with Buckley having the reach advantage, Nasrat is the longer guy. So Buckley's going to have to close the distance with big looping hooks, which he is known for. That's where Nasrat can get off on those straight punches down the pipe. But in the clinch is where I also think it's interesting, because you know that Nasrat can tie up. You saw that Phil Haas fight. That was a fucking grueling ass war. But I think that Joaquin Buckley's been getting better in that area too. So while I do lean Nasrat Imavov, man, for sure, I just don't know if minus 275 is not a lean price. Minus 275 is, this guy's going to come out here and fucking starch him price. Do you view it as a minus 275 fight, or maybe a little closer?
Maybe a little closer, but honestly, Dan, I don't know how much closer. Nasrat Imavov is just turning into the dude for me. You know, I saw this guy coming a mile away, and I took a big step back when he lost to Phil Haas, but his last couple fights, he's turning that corner. He's coming around. He's a serious prospect that I think is going to be a problem for a long time. And I know D1 Buckley has been a thing lately. He's shoring up those wrestling chops. That grappling is starting to get showed off a little bit. But I think he's got a long way to go before he's ready to compete and hang with somebody like Nasrat Imavov in the grappling department. So I think this is Nasrat Imavov's fight to lose. The way Buckley strikes, I think he can pick at him with those nice, tight, straight shots that he fires from the outside. And then if this thing does turn into a grind, I'm going to take Nasrat there. So maybe a little wide, but not by a lot. I think Nasrat Imavov should win this fight as long as he doesn't get nuked. And even if he does get caught, I'm not convinced it'll be a one-hitter quitter that puts him out. I think he can walk through some fire and stay in this fight. I think the favorite is justifiably so.
Yeah, no, and I get it. It's just I just don't view Buckley as, Shabazian, who's got one big round and then after that kind of folds up at the first sign of adversity.
No. He carries that power late.
And the line was much closer for the Shabazian fight than it is here. So that's why I kind of see it as, if this was the same line for the Shabazian fight, minus 150 Imavov, okay. But minus 275. Minus 275 means that, Buckley's just going to come out here, get knocked out real quick, pack his bags, and go back to the United States, take that long-ass fucking flight. So let's see if Imavov handles him that way. But I do agree with you. I think Imavov is that guy, and I've been high on him while people were low on him. I love the guy. It's just, it's all about the price. Minus 275 is a steep-ass price, and Buckley's been making improvements. So let's see.
Agreed.
Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got Benoit Saint Denis, 9-1, taking on Gabriel Miranda, who's 16-5. Currently, they got it. Benoit Saint Denis minus 285. The comeback on Gabriel Miranda is plus 240. Now, this is a spot where I agree with the minus 285. Like the Imavov line, that should be the line in this fight, because, listen, I like Gabriel Miranda. He's exciting. He comes to fight. This is a guy that comes out there and, he takes dudes down in the first round and submits them, man. And he does a great job. And it's fun to see what he's done with his regional opponents. It's just that here at the UFC level, Clint, to quote Conor McGregor before the Chad Mendes fight, he's too small. He's too small. He's too small. Bro, this dude is not a fucking lightweight. This kid needs to drop the featherweight for the UFC division. And when you want to talk about tough, when you want to talk about a tough ass dude, you talk about Benoit Saint Denis. I mean, I know for a fact, like when growing up, when your dad used to, bust out the belt when you need some disciplinary, what is it? What is it? Disciplinary action. You either cry like a little bitch or you take it like a man. When my boy Benoit Saint Denis took that ass whooping against Elizeu Zaleski, he took that ass whooping like a man. That's how a grown ass man takes an ass whooping. And then he comes back against a much lesser opponent. And the way he handled that kid was like, yeah, okay, this guy, he's legit. He's about to handle Gabriel Miranda, in my opinion. I think he's going to get him out of there, and I think he covers his price tag.
Dan, I couldn't agree with you more. We can save some time on this one. The only thing I think Gabriel Miranda is live for in this fight is a 1-round guillotine. If he doesn't snatch the neck when Benoit Saint Denis comes in for a takedown and tap him out in that first round, he ain't getting it. That's just the way that it goes. Benoit is the more physically stronger of the two. He's a real 155er. He's also the guy that relies more on his wrestling offense as opposed to pulling guard or trying to drag his opponents down to the mat. You're going to get Benoit on top. You're going to get Miranda on bottom. And then I think Miranda has the worst gas tank of the two. So maybe, at this weight class, he can last a little bit longer. But from what I'm understanding, he's got a longer or worse travel situation as well. So if he's not completely acclimated, that could play into this fight as well. Benoit Saint Denis is a parlay piece for me at some point, Dan. I'm trying to figure out right now who I want to pair him with, whether that's someone like Nasrat or, one of these other favorites on the card. I'm probably going to do a small 2-legger parlay with Benoit involved. As long as he keeps his neck safe on that takedown entry, I think we're good.
So penultimate fight, we got Khalid Taha, he's 13-4, taking on Christian Quinones, who's 17-3 in the bantamweight division. And currently they got it Khalid Taha minus 111. The comeback on Christian Quinones, or comeback, is minus 109, basically a pick 'em. So I did my job. I took Christian Quinones plus 118, so I'm happy I beat the line there. And this is the reason why I took Christian Quinones. Yes, Khalid Taha has fought the better level of competition. Yes, Khalid Taha is the harder hitter, no questions asked. But the bottom line is Christian Quinones, he's got a style that I really like in terms of beating low volume fighters. This guy is going to double up Taha on output, pops his jab, has really good movement, is defensively sound, good takedown defense. But specifically with this matchup, you guys know that there's a few angles that I just go after time after time after time. One being the relentless wrestler angle, the guys that can just shoot takedown after takedown after takedown without getting discouraged. That's not this, but that's one of the angles. The other angle is the young prospect against the washed up vet. I fucking love that angle. But then there's this angle, which is the low output guy who doesn't throw shit versus the high output guy that if this goes to decision, the high output guy's going to win. Look, basically, can Khalid Taha knock out Quinones? Yes. I mean, Quinones has been knocked out before and does have a little bit of that tall man's defense. And, with his style, doesn't really plant his feet too much. He moves a lot, so he's there. So he will be there to be hit. But the output difference is huge. And I love a guy with double the output at dog odds. And Khalid Taha, we know what he brings to the table. He's either going to hurt you really badly or he's not. And if he doesn't, I think Christian Quinones comes out here and wins this decision. So I took one unit at plus 118 on Christian Quinones. Let's go out there, double him up on strikes, and don't go down, and I think we win this fight. So I got Christian Quinones.
You could not have broken this fight down better, Dan, but for the exact same reasons that you listed, I'm looking the other way. You did your job. You got that plus number. The line is moved. I'm waiting to see how low this thing gets. Maybe I'll take the knockout prop with Khalid Taha. I might even take me a little bit of that round 3 sprinkle on Khalid Taha because Christian Quinones is hittable, because he's got that tall man defense, because of the double output. I know he's not going to put away Khalid Taha because this man is made of steel, and he's still going to be there with that power in the 3rd round where we have seen Quinones slowing down. So exact same breakdown. I tend to like the other side, but I want the better price on it. Yeah, I think Khalid Taha is a guy that he's a bit of a measuring stick in the UFC at this point, but he's got some decent performances against UFC caliber opposition. Christian Quinones, while he does have a decent game plan, I like the way that he fights. His style is good. I just don't know that he's UFC caliber. I'm not overly impressed with the wins that he's got. And the fact that he's been hurt in so many of his regional scene fights, I think somebody who's UFC caliber and, dare I say, on some good vitamins is probably going to be enough to put him away at some point.
Great vitamins.
So, yeah, man. So I think Taha probably gets him out of there. But I also agree with you that it's more of a one-hitter quitter type situation. It's a matter of he's got to catch him. He's not going to be winning minutes. So, like I said, maybe the inside the distance or the knockout prop for me, but I'll lean on the side of Khalid Taha here.
Yeah, I mean, we both understand the dynamic. It's just I hope that this way goes. You hope that way goes.
Exactly.
We'll see which one takes place. And last but not least, we got Ailin Perez. She's 7-1, representing Argentina, taking on Stephanie Egger, who's 7-3, representing Switzerland. And currently, they got it. Stephanie Egger minus 275, my friend. The comeback on Ailin Perez is plus 250. This is a really interesting fight, and we're going to find out right away who the better fighter is just based on how they both fight. You guys already know what Stephanie Egger brings to the table, has the judo background, even grappled with Ronda Rousey back in the day was it the Olympic Games or whatever. But she's a very credentialed judo player. But Ailin Perez, look, I know Ailin Perez hasn't fought anybody. I know Ailin Perez is coming from, this regional scene where the level of competition is suspect. But I'm telling y'all, this chick don't play. And if you've ever dated an Argentinian chick or you've ever been around one, you know that they are feisty individuals. And this girl comes to fight. And even the one fight that she lost, which was a DQ, you know what I really like. So she illegally knees this girl and knocks her out, and then she starts celebrating as if she won. And in her Instagram profile, it says she's 8-0 because to her, she won that fight. Like, I mean, listen, they got into a fight. One person knocked the other person out. So, call it a DQ, call it a loss all you want. That shit ain't no loss. Just like
she wrecked that girl, Dan.
John
Jones
mauled
her.
John Jones didn't lose to Matt Hamill either. So, it's one of those things. But basically, we're going to find out right away who's going to win this fight for the sole fact that Ailin Perez likes to be a bully in there. Ailin Perez likes to tie up right away, impose her physicality, get you down on the ground, big ground and pound, and dominate you. And the good or bad news for Stephanie Egger is she's going to get the fight she wants. She's going to get someone that's going to tie up with her right away, and we're going to find out, is Stephanie Egger going to be able to judo throw her, or is Stephanie Egger going to get bullied in this fight? So it's 50-50 in my eyes on which thing's going to happen, but I know it's not going to play out 50-50. For it to play out -3 whatever for Stephanie's got to go out there, judo throw her, armbar her, and be done with it. But I have a feeling this girl Ailin, despite never fighting anybody, she's physical, and her game plan specifically might be able to neutralize Egger. So I'm not sure. And I missed the plus 275, which I'm pissed about, but I think it's a dog or pass situation, my man. And I'll actually pick Ailin Perez. And it's either going to be idiot or hey, chill out, Leo. He's barking right now. That means Ailin's going to win. It's going to be either idiot or genius, because she's either going to be able to dominate her with physicality, or she's going to be put on her back and won't be able to get back up. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to go with Ailin Perez for the upset.
Man, this is another one where we're going to go ahead and disagree just a little bit. But again, we can't get away from the fight breakdowns being roughly the same. I see exactly what you're saying with Perez, and maybe she's the next big thing. Maybe she deserves to be here. I think the recency bias swings in women's MMA are just maybe the most massive thing we've ever seen in sports betting. You go from being the hottest thing one week to being garbage and faded the next week. People are not high on Stephanie Egger after thinking that she's going to smoke everybody she fights for her last 2-3 fights in a row. The problem for me is that judo throw, man. It's a cheat code. You get these women that come in looking for the body lock. They want to tie up with you. If they don't know how to defend the judo throw, they're going for a ride. And while I think Perez is probably more well-rounded, maybe she's got the better MMA game, the higher ceiling, I don't know if she's got her seatbelt on Saturday. So if she comes in and she's able to, maintain that base, if she knows how to stuff a judo throw, then yeah, she probably will beat Stephanie Egger. But the way she fights, I don't think she's got a plan B. If she doesn't have an answer for that judo throw, I think she ends up on bottom. And even if she doesn't get subbed or tapped out or anything like that, she probably just loses minutes down there. I kind of think this is going to be a Stephanie Egger by decision type of spot. I hate the price tag because she's a very limited fighter, but I think this is an opponent where that game plan can work perfectly.
Yeah, and I mean, she might not have a plan B, but if Egger wins the way Egger normally wins, then she might have to take plan B the next morning. But anyways, Clint, I'm going to get you out on that note, my man. I know you got to run. I really appreciate you being here. The fans can follow you at Die Hard MMA Pod. Fucking love this guy. Always a pleasure. Let's do it again soon. Thank you, bro.
You know the deal, Dan. The only reason we haven't been on camera together for a while is because you had a big ass test that you aced. I'm proud of you, buddy. Congratulations on that. We'll definitely get rescheduled and have you over on the podcast again sooner than later. Thank you for having me. It's always fun talking fights with you. I hope everybody cashes some tickets and makes piles of money on Saturday in Paris. And let's go. Let's share a baguette.
Yes, sir. And enjoy the camping trip, brother. We'll talk soon. All right.
Thanks, man. Catch you later.
All right. Much love. See you, bro. So that's my boy Clint. Y'all already know the deal. All right. So now I'm gonna address the chat. I didn't address it throughout the show like I normally do, just because my boy Clint was in a bit of a rush. So anyways, let's see what y'all have been saying. So my boy MMA Locker Room said, I'm only here to remind you that the Braves won the World Series. You know what I'm saying? Repping that Ronald Acuna shirt. Patty gave me a 1999 donation. 1999. Yeah, I really appreciate that, man. That fucking means a lot to me. I need to figure out how to access those donations. I still don't know how to, but that means the world to me, man. Thank you. Jay Weezy also gave a donation. He said, love Half the Battle, been a fan since the early days. Shout out to Dan, shout out to Clint, shout out to retired co-host Shaq. Much love to Dan for getting these fighter interviews and getting the jiu-jitsu game stronger. Man, thank you so much, bro. That really means the world to me. So thank you all. If y'all know how I can access those donations, that'd be awesome, because I still have them from like every single time someone's donated. I haven't been able to touch any of the money, which I would just do to look at this guy right here. Can you believe my boy Leo? He wants to thank y'all for your generosity. But nah, I mean, it would all be used to just improve the quality of the show and, you know, all that stuff. So it means the world to me that, you know, you donated, bro. Thank you so much. He's begging me to get the fuck off the show, but I'll answer a couple more things. Let's see. My boy Dominic says smash the like. You know what I'm saying? Smash that like, smash that like. If y'all got any questions for me, leave them for me now. If not, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. But I truly appreciate y'all being here. Appreciate Clint being here as well. And I had a lot of fun. My boy wants me to say Mike Grundy. I can't say it unless they're in London, bro. We only bust out the Grundys when they go to the UK, but not right now. But yeah, someone said, am I selling digital real estate? Not residential and commercial. But first, let me pass my state exam. That's the plan. My boy Marcus in the house, Nubian Bookstore. Make sure y'all hit him out if you're in my city. Great show, great store. Thank you, bro. Thank all y'all for everything, man. Really, really sincerely appreciate it. Next time, I'm gonna sit down and talk with y'all more. Post a link in here. Let y'all. He said, Dan, William Gomis is French, just FYI. Yeah, he lives in France, but he was born in Senegal, I believe. Wasn't he born in Senegal, Africa? I'm pretty damn sure, wasn't he? I know he lives in France currently, but wasn't a situation like Francis Ngannou, where he was born in Cameroon and then moved to France. This dude was born in Senegal, moved to France. I'm pretty sure that was the case, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. But either way, thank you all so much for everything. Subscribe to Half the Battle everywhere podcasts are found. Smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'll be back next week for UFC 279. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.